Think about what you ate for dinner last night, or lunch, or the meal you're planning for tonight. There's a decent chance rice was involved, and if you live in America, that might surprise you. Because the story we tell about American food is burgers, hot dogs, apple pie. We don't think of ourselves as a rice-eating culture, but we are, and we're becoming one more every single year. Americans now consume over 5 million metric tons of rice every year. That is roughly 11 pounds of rice for every man, woman, and child in the country, and it has grown by 12% in just the last decade. So what's going on? Why is a grain most associated with Asia and Latin America becoming a staple of the American plate? The answer isn't simple. It involves 400 years of history, tens of millions of immigrants, a fast food revolution, and one of the most remarkable economic bargains in the entire grocery store. This is the story of rice in America. Let's start with the scale, because the numbers are bigger than most people expect. The United States consumes over 5 million metric tons of rice per year. That's enough to fill roughly 2,000 Olympic swimming pools. The rice market in America alone, just the buying and selling of rice, is worth around $6.5 billion. It's the fifth most valuable field crop in the country. Now, in fairness, if you compare the average American to, say, the average Vietnamese person, Americans eat far less rice per person, around 26 pounds a year versus over 500 in Vietnam. Bangladesh, 400 plus pounds per person. But here's what makes the American story interesting. The United States is one of the most racially and ethnically diverse nations on Earth, and that diversity means rice consumption is wildly uneven. It doesn't show up the same in every household. And that gap between who is eating rice and who isn't tells the real story. Because to understand rice in America, you have to go back, way back. Here's something American history classes don't usually teach. Rice was one of the most powerful economic engines of early America, and the people who made it possible were enslaved Africans. In the 1600s and 1700s, colonists in South Carolina and Georgia desperately needed a cash crop, something like Virginia's tobacco or the Caribbean's sugar. They tried rice, and it worked, but not because of European farming techniques. The enslaved Africans being brought to these colonies came from what was called the Rice Coast of West Africa, modern Sierra Leone, and Senegambia. They had grown rice for thousands of years. They knew how to dike marshes, flood fields, and harvest a crop that European settlers had no idea how to cultivate. At the port of Charleston, through which 40% of all enslaved people brought to America passed, those with rice knowledge were sold at the highest prices. Their expertise literally built one of the earliest American agricultural industries. The descendants of those communities, known as the Gullah Geechee people, still live along the South Carolina and Georgia coasts, and their cuisine, built entirely around rice, gave us dishes that are now considered quintessentially American. Hoppin' John, jambalaya, red beans and rice. Then came the second wave. In the 1800s, tens of thousands of Chinese immigrants arrived in California to build the Transcontinental Railroad. They brought their food with them, and the demand was so large that California began growing rice specifically to feed them. That industry, California's rice farms, still exists today. What followed was a century of immigration waves from Japan, Korea, the Philippines, Vietnam, India, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, West Africa, each one bringing a culture where rice wasn't a side dish, it was the meal. America's rice future is already written in its demographics. The more diverse the country becomes, the more rice it will eat. It's that direct. Now let's talk about money. Because even if you strip away the entire cultural and historical argument, rice would still be one of the most consumed foods in America. And the reason is brutally simple. It is extraordinarily cheap. Think about that. 5 to 9 cents per serving. There is almost nothing else in a grocery store that competes with that. And unlike bread, which goes stale in days, dry white rice can sit in your pantry for decades. Literally decades, if stored properly. For the nearly 40 million Americans experiencing food insecurity, rice isn't a choice, it's a lifeline. It fills plates, it stretches budgets. It pairs with whatever is cheapest that week. Beans, eggs, canned fish, frozen vegetables. Rice is, in a very real sense, the food of survival. And America has always had people who needed to survive. But the economics cut both ways, because rice isn't just eaten by people who can't afford other options. It's eaten by everyone, because the value is undeniable at any income level. A cup of dry rice expands to 3 cups when cooked. It essentially triples in volume. No other mainstream carbohydrate does that as efficiently. Somewhere in the 2010, something shifted in American food culture. Gyms got packed, meal prep became a lifestyle, and an entire generation started talking about macros, macronutrients, protein, carbs, fat. And in that world, rice, specifically chicken and rice, became the unofficial fuel of the American fitness movement. Pure carbs, no fat, easy to weigh, easy to track, easy to pair with any protein. The gym bro meal that somehow went mainstream. But it wasn't just fitness culture. The same period saw a surge in brown rice, whole grain rice, with the bran and germ intact. And the science actually backs this one up. Brown rice has a lower glycemic index than white rice, meaning it releases sugar more slowly into the bloodstream. It has 3 times the fiber, far more magnesium, manganese, and antioxidants. It's a legitimately different food from a health perspective. And then there's the gluten-free wave, with millions of Americans either diagnosed with celiac disease or choosing to avoid gluten. Rice became the safe grain. Rice flour, rice pasta, rice crackers, rice milk. The grain quietly spread into every corner of the American diet through the back door of health trends. Let's talk about the food industry, because one of the most powerful forces driving rice consumption in America isn't immigration, or health trends, or economics. It's the restaurants. In 1993, a small restaurant in Denver started serving burritos in a new way, not wrapped tight, but open, in a bowl. The bowl needed a base. They chose rice, cilantro lime white rice to be specific. That restaurant was Chipotle. It now has over 3,200 locations in the United States. And that bowl, rice at the bottom, protein on top, a dozen toppings, became the defining fast casual meal of a generation. Chipotle didn't invent the rice bowl, but it proved that mainstream American consumers would enthusiastically eat one. And the entire fast casual industry noticed. Poke bowl chains, Korean rice bowl restaurants, Mediterranean fast casual spots built on basmati, teriyaki chains, sushi burritos. The entire fast casual boom of the 2010 was, at its core, a rice boom. Rice was the canvas, the neutral, filling, endlessly versatile base that every global cuisine could paint on top of. And then the grocery store followed. Microwavable rice pouches ready in 90 seconds, frozen rice meals from every Asian cuisine imaginable, rice-based snacks, rice cereals for babies. The industry didn't just sell rice, it engineered rice into every moment of the American eating day. And social media accelerated it further. When a poke bowl goes viral on TikTok, when a Korean grandma's bibimbap recipe gets 5 million views, when a food influencer does what I eat in a day, and rice is in every single meal, that is free advertising for an entire category of food. So why do Americans eat so much rice? Because America is not the monolith it sometimes pretends to be. It is a country of 60+ million immigrants, each carrying their food traditions across an ocean or a border. It is a country where 38 million people are food insecure, and rice is what feeds them. It is a country where health culture and fitness influencers and gluten-free diets all happen to converge on the same grain. And it is a country where a restaurant in Denver figured out that a bowl of rice with stuff on top was the perfect meal for a busy, hungry, diverse nation. Rice didn't become popular in America because Americans chose it. America became a country where rice made sense, culturally, economically, historically, nutritionally. The grain didn't change. America did. And as the country continues to diversify, as fast casual keeps growing, as health trends keep evolving, there's really only one direction rice consumption is going in the United States.